Metropolis.
Hello and welcome to Bomb Squad Matinee. I am Tim M. Sullivan, and with me I have...
I'm a gender-ambiguous robot child in a propeller beanie.
True.
Ziggurat, but I barely know her odd. I'm Austin Zwiebelman.
So true, so true. And today, if you couldn't tell by those gags, we are talking about the hit film Metropolis. No, not that Fritz Lang thing. The 2001 anime film Metropolis. Some background on this picture. It was the original story was loosely inspired by Fritz Lang's Metropolis, in that Osamu Tezuka saw a still from it and was like, "That's really cool," and made a manga based on that. Yeah, like I said, this is based on a manga from Osamu Tezuka, who many of you will know as the godfather of anime, as many people call him. He was the creator of Astro Boy, which basically started the subgenre. He also created such series as Blackjack, Dororo, Jungle Emperor Leo, among many others. This was directed by Rintaro, who fans of the show will remember from Galaxy Express 39. He also directed X-1999, When Named Amnesia, and The Dagger of Kamui, also, again, amongst others. This has screenplay by Katsuhiro Otomo, who is best known for creating Akira. He also created the original manga for Memories and worked on various elements of the movie and Rojin Z. So yeah, there's a lot of pedigree behind this film, and it's a film about a future with machines, robots, as you will. And in that spirit, I think we should talk about some of our favorite robot cartoons. So, my opening question is, what is your favorite robot cartoon? So we're going to start with Bomb Squad's robot cartoon connoisseur, Ethan Hawker.
Okay, so this one is actually quite easy for me, because it's the Space Runner Ideon finale film, Ideon Be Invoked. I was thinking about doing something kind of pithy, like, well, a robot film isn't a mecha film, but I don't care. I just want to talk about Ideon Be Invoked for a minute.
Robot is robot.
Exactly. Ideon Be Invoked is the finale to the television anime series Space Runner Ideon that was canceled prematurely, and this sort of wraps up that narrative, directed by Yoshiyuki Tomino, immediately after he completed work on the Mobile Suit Gundam television series. Ideon Be Invoked is not just like my favorite robot, it's just my favorite movie, period, bar none. It's the best. Don't get any better than that. Few films are so beautiful, like beautifully rendered, remarkably storyboarded. I know he wasn't terribly involved with the production of the finale film itself, but it's heavily based on his storyboards for the last 4 episodes that remained unproduced, obviously. He was writing a novel and making the final Gundam film at the time, so I'll cut him a little bit of slack. And yeah, it's just a really remarkable piece of animation, equal parts sort of nihilistic, but also profoundly hopeful. If you want that same rush that like the end of Evangelion gets, you can get a little bit of that there. It was also a big influence on the end of Evangelion, so that continuity is recognizable. And also, it's just the TV show has this to an extent, but it's a movie that does not stop. It's one of those movies that is just pure momentum in a way that's extremely satisfying to watch. It does come with the caveat that you have to watch a 39-episode television series being made by a guy who was also directing a trilogy of movies and writing a trilogy of novels at the same time, so it's a bit pell-mell at times. But it also has some of the best episodes of TV anime mixed in with some kind of like, other episodes of TV anime. It's an uneven beast that I quite like. like, but the
Yes, I love
the-
Revolutionary Girl Utena.
That's right. I would say Utena is more consistent maybe than that one. There's no episode about Kasha laying eggs, or Piper Lou having to look for curry. I feel like Nanami and Kasha would get along. There's an Angel's Egg connection here, bringing it all back to eggs. That'll probably come up in general discussion. How exciting! But yeah, no, Ideon be invoked, bar none. Like that, you finish that 39 episodes of a pretty good show that's a little uneven, and then you're rewarded with the best movie ever made, in my opinion. And it's terrific. Absolutely watch it if you can.
Hell yeah, good stuff. Ideon is one of those series that's always been kind of a blind spot for me, but that's one that I've had some interest in. I'll have to give it a watch. Austin, favorite cartoon about Robot?
Of the many times on this show I have outed myself as a fucking pedestrian, none may be so brazen as me forgoing all of Japanese animation in favor of tooting my horn for the Iron Giant.
Let's
This
go!
mainly stems from the fact, in my household, TV, especially older 30-plus episode seasons, have been treated like hammering cheeseburgers, while like feature films have been viewed more like some elegant salmon and rice dish. And when it comes to robot cartoons specifically, you've only really got about 98 options to choose from if you fenced yourself off in the front yard, away from the ostentatious mansion where the Gundam live. So, again, my genuine answer from the limited data set is the Iron Giant. Like tonight's movie, it blended traditional animation with computer graphics in a way that was really groundbreaking at the time, being the first 2D animated film to have its title character completely created in 3D CGI. They also made this custom shader called Gartoons that did some really neat shit, like applying a texture and wobble and weight variance to the giant's outline, and also rendering him on twos. Plus, the giant sacrifice at the climax is the Millennial Guy's equivalent of Ally McGraw dying at the end of Love Story. Or Atreyu's horse sinking into the bog of sadness in The Never-Ending Story. It's really an excellent example of a movie where the themes are extremely consistent, well plotted out, with a payoff that just fucks you up forever. That said, if I were to abruptly panic and try to flex nuts on people who don't have film degrees, I'd do a shout out to the 1976 science fiction short, The Crabs. Directed by Czechoslovakian animator Vaclav Mrgol, adapted from the fucking 1958 Soviet science fiction short story Crabs Take Over the Island by physicist Anatoly Deniprov. The Crabs tells the story of this Simon Bar Sinister-ass looking scientist and his very CAD-like henchmen running experiments on this remote island, observing the evolution of a species of robotic crabs who consume metal to survive. The art style is very reminiscent of like Monty Python, Fantastic Planet, and Ralph Steadman illustrations. The story structure, it's similar to Frankenstein. It's this creature who cannot feel complete due to a design flaw from its creator, and then it goes into fucking sicko mode after it gets struck by lightning and eventually cancels everybody's subscription to Life magazine. The creature's eventual demise in this is particularly poignant. Watching a creature that's like tuned for destruction finally run out of things to kill alone and resorting to auto-cannibalism. The Ouroboros it's a fun metaphor to reference, but actually watching something eat itself to death is kind of harrowing. So, thanks to this YouTube channel run by acquisition company AQS, there's actually a really good 1080p scan of the crabs up on YouTube. Back in the day, this served as like a grim anti-war allegory about the Cold War arms race, but if you read any of the recent YouTube comments on the official upload, you'll find many people agree this takes on a new shape in the like generative AI era that we're going through. Yeah. And that's my thoughts. Genuine pick, The Iron Giant. Film studies circle jerk pick, The Crabs. Yeah, back to you, Tim.
Hell yeah, good stuff. I have not heard of The Crabs, but I'm definitely interested now. I need to see this. Iron Giant, of course, is an excellent pick. We had an episode on the Iron Giant a couple of years back when, God, that movie turned 25. Yeah, that movie's incredible. Cannot knock that pick at all. Good picks all around. My Time to Shine, hello. My answer is Ghost in the Shell. Who's surprised? I've talked about Mamoru Oshii's Ghost in the Shell films a decent bit, but just to kind of talk about Ghost in the Shell as a franchise at large, I think there's just a lot of really interesting stuff there. The manga is very fun, lighthearted, has some really interesting stuff going on in it though, and the movies kind of expand upon that in more of a serious way. There's some really fascinating art in all of the iterations, pretty much. Maybe less so with the CGI standalone complex stuff, but I even enjoyed the little bit of that I watched. I didn't hate it. But the Oshii films are excellent. The standalone complex series is excellent. Arise is pretty decent. I do have some autographs to flex because I got Richard F. Carr's autograph on Ghost in the Shell 2 Innocence, and I got Mary Elizabeth McGlynn's autograph on the standalone complex movie Solid State Society. I want to get the original film signed by somebody, but I don't know who to get. I don't know who to get an autograph by. I need to meet Oshii. Because the original voice of Motoko is retired, so I don't know when I'm gonna have an opportunity to see her anywhere. But love the films, love the series, love the manga. I'm very excited for the Science Saru anime series coming out this year. I will probably have to watch fan subs because I don't trust fucking Prime to not do some AI bullshit with the fan subs, or with the official subs. They've been just shitting the bed with their subtitles and their AI dubs. I will probably never watch anime on Amazon Prime again. It's bad. Fuck Jeff Bezos. Come fight me. But yeah, Ghost in the Shell is my favorite robot cartoon. One of my favorite just pieces of art. Absolutely love Ghost in the Shell and several of its many iterations. And I also am quite fond of the film we're talking about today. Rintaro's Osamu Tezuka's Metropolis 2001. Let's get right into it. What are our thoughts on Metropolis 2001? Ethan, we'll start with you.
Well, to answer the first question, which is who do I get to sign my copy of the original Ghost in the Shell, I think it's obvious. It's Bono.
Yeah. yeah. Bono and Brian Eno.
Both of them, yes.
Yeah.
Just have their signatures intersecting.
Yeah.
There you go. They've become one.
Yeah.
Man and machine. But regarding the primary question about Rintaro's Osamu Tezuka's Fritz Lang's Metropolis, I want to make a cut of this that just reuses the Marauder score, because I think this is a 5.1 mix where you can probably cut out all of the that's all the music track is probably on. So then you could have Giorgio Moroder's Rintaro's Osamu Tezuka's Fritz Lang's Metropolis. But regarding this film, I think this one's really remarkable. We've discussed Galaxy Express 39, and I think that Metropolis is maybe the most approachable, but absolutely, at the very least, the second most approachable of his features behind Galaxy Express 39. The rest of them are interesting beasts. I like Rintaro's films a great deal, but I always found him especially like strong in terms of his like short subject work or his work in other areas, like OVAs in particular. I actually wrote a little blurb on Zimrit about his OVA download as a part of a compilation of like submissions on different OVA titles with some really great stuff by guests of the show as well. The Giant Robot FM crew, PMC Trilogy, and Stephen Hero, and Thaliarchus both wrote really good. Thaliarchus wrote a really brief one about Gosenzo Sama Banbanzai that I quite liked, which is a OVA series with great merits. But I'm not here to talk about Gosenzo Sama Banbanzai. I'm here to talk about Metropolis, which I think is really interesting. I've been thinking a lot about, I guess, integration of CGI and character animation, like cell animation in environments, which, obviously, and since we're just doing overall thoughts, I could skip straight to talking about animation. I don't have to talk about the characters or the story. That should go to hell. I'll probably talk about it a little bit. But, yeah, the separation of layers in this, because I recently saw the Gundam Hathaway films, which I think do that rather poorly, if I'm being completely honest. So it's in here. It's very interesting that there is sort of a really flaunted gap between them, but I'm never bothered by it, or at least very rarely bothered by it here. Seeing some of the behind the scenes features, it's interesting the way they sort of suppress those, particularly through the use of like can painting color and that sort of thing. But in general, I think it's almost that the disparity makes it go down easier. Like the Hathaway films try to do more convincing character animation and that sort of thing, so it just kind of generates an uncanny effect. Whereas what you have here is these really soft, Tezuka adjacent characters. They're sort of based on his much later period material and not really even the designs that you would see in the Metropolis manga proper, which we'll probably talk about a little bit in general discussion. But they move with subtlety and a great deal of grace, but the proportions and everything on them are exaggerated, and even a lot of their like character actions, like their performance movements, are a bit more exaggerated than you would expect. There's a lot more gesticulating than you would expect from this thing, but it's all in service to this really sober narrative. It's a little humorless in a way that's interesting as an adaptation of Tezuka stuff. It does feel like a premium grade kind of a prestige format retelling of this original manga, which I think is interesting for Rintaro to try and do. I think the end result is a lot more like ordered than the original manga in many ways, in a way that generates this interesting effect. It's still got some of that classic, what I colloquially refer to, and with a certain amount of reverence and only at times disgruntlement, Rintaro pacing. His movies are, I do think, genuinely best consumed on the big screen to some extent, like when you're locked in, so to speak. Because I saw this film in theaters, and that was a really remarkable experience. I think that's the place to see something like this, especially something like his films, which are always packed with really striking images, at the very least. Like Dagger of Kamui is a film that I don't know if I would visit it in its entirety very often, but I will revisit moments of it constantly because it's really good in spots and really like come on at other spots. But on the whole, I think Metropolis is the unique thing, like a technical object. Obviously, it's collecting all these layers. And in doing so with remarkable success, like as an aesthetic object, I think it really works despite what it's doing and what it's doing, like the time it's doing it at. We're pre 9/11, baby. That's the landmark for computer generated animation that I'm going to use. But genuinely, it does look quite impressive, and they're intelligent about where to deploy it and where not to, by and large. And it's in service to a story that's a little messy, but very beautiful, like very heartfelt, even as it's at times sort of ambivalent about some things, about like government control and give you a real clear map of the narrative's development. And a part of that is sort of the particular way it's adapting material, because it's trying to adapt material from the original manga and from Fritz Lang's film, and also do its own thing. And I think ultimately it does create a really distinct identity for itself. I think it's a completely separate object from the manga or from Lang's film. And I think that remains compelling. I find the interactions with Tima and Kenichi to be still quite fun, quite enjoyable, and it's fun. Even if we'll talk about this a little bit too later, but I do wish we got a little bit of the kind of gender weirdness that you get in the original manga. That's compelling, that sort of thing. But on the whole, I think Metropolis is a really wonderful film from Rintaro, and it is his second to last feature before Yona Yona Penguin, and I haven't seen Yona Yona Penguin, so now I have to see that. I hope it's good. I hope it's as good as Metropolis. I think it might be.
Hell yeah, good stuff. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned this being pre 9/11. I did read that like when they were releasing this in the States, it was like right after 9/11, so they had to delay it for reasons. But then it ended up doing well enough that they ended up like extending the theatrical window more than they had initially planned, so like that's cool. Austin, thoughts on this version of Metropolis?
Isn't the ziggurat in this styled after like an actual government building in Japan? It's like a fairly precise replica, or kind of in the same style.
I believe so.
I wonder if there was anyone who like saw this on September 10th and was watching the scene where the ziggurat goes down, and they just like the next day they're like, had that moment with like whatever the Simpsons did with 9/11, or that was there a Magic the Gathering card that predicted it? I don't know. Being on this episode right now very much feels like that common dream that post-grads have, where it's the last day of college semester and you suddenly realize there was an extra class on your schedule that you didn't notice.
Yeah.
You failed to attend a single session. I think there are already some really exceptional video essays about this movie on YouTube from people like Pause and Select, Steve M. Kyoto Video did a really great one. And for all their different approaches, they make one thing abundantly clear. You're kind of showing up with your pants down, unless you've seen the Fritz Lang movie, read the Tezuka manga, and seen this movie. The Kyoto Video took it one step further, asserting that this is just like a big tribute to Osamu Tezuka, and familiarity with his catalog and the star system kind of reveals the grander design of what Rintaro was doing here. Unfortunately, dear viewers, I had to help my husband's grandparents move out of their assisted living facility this week, so I'm walking head first into the jet turbine, like
Tragic.
One of those characters in the beginning of The Happening. Metropolis is a movie I do remember seeing print ads in something like Beckett's old Pokemon magazines. Metropolis,
Beckett.
Millennium Actress. Yeah, baby, it was in there. It was everywhere. Big print campaign.
No, that name drop hit me like a fucking train. Holy shit.
Memories of being in a Schnucks aisle. This Metropolis, Millennium Actress, casualties of Spirited Away's massive international success. Except, unlike a lot of films that eventually picked up steam after getting fucking cratered by a box office nuke, stuff like Blade Runner, Shawshank Redemption, Treasure Planet to a lesser extent, Metropolis is virtually impossible to come by via the method that most normal people use to discover movies. You can't stream this shit anywhere, baby.
Yeah.
You either buy this thing on physical media or you travel the fuck back in time 25 years. So, Needless to say, after I scored my Blu-ray copy from the legal media store, as I was sitting through the unskippable FBI copyright screen on my couch, the main things that had me jazzed about this were the fact that, like, the guy who directed Akira wrote this bad boy, and more than anything, the fact that this was animated by fucking Madhouse. Dear viewer, did you like One Punch Man Season 1 before it fucking fell off a cliff? That's because the first season was animated by Madhouse. They did Perfect Blue, Vampire Hunter D Bloodlust, Millennium Actress, funny enough. Rintaro at the helm directing it also gave it, like, a certain mystique, although, unlike you guys, I'm like, woefully unfamiliar with his catalog outside of the 2 Galaxy Express films. Little aside here, we badly need a remaster of this movie in 4K. Even the Blu-ray, it suffered from a lot of the finished comps looking kind of blurry, because the master, from what I've read, is essentially like an upscale of like a near standard definition master tape, rather than a high-resolution scan of the original elements. It's a bizarre combination, like chocolate and like pineapple slices. Almost every shot of this fucking movie is colossal in scale, but mired through like pixels smearing together in this Gaussian haze. So now I feel like an Alamo Drafthouse employee, just kind of waiting for the day Sony grows a conscience and stops spiritually fucking me in the ass, refusing to remaster this great work of art. Get on it, Sony. Experientially, Metropolis had this very 2000-aughts characteristic where the opening, strong enough. Nothing like super exceptional, but it firmly plants you in the world. Then the middle is a mixed bag, and it ends with some memorable sequence set to music that absolutely knocks the dog shit out of everything else in the movie. It's a sort of cinematic approach that used to trigger every neuron of my brain back when I was a teenager. Stuff like The Fountain, Donnie Darko, Sunshine did this. I think Clint Mansell at one point had it in his contract that he would only compose for movies with a structure like this. Metropolis, it fell off a little bit, in my opinion, after Tima was captured, and her ascent to, like, vengeful godhood felt like a less visceral take on the climax of Akira. But holy smokes, when that Ray Charles song started playing,
yeah.
I was floored! Beyond the fact it was really surprising that a $15 million Japanese film would use an English-language Ray Charles track, the effects animation during that sequence must have taken some of the personnel just fucking months to get this done. It also follows on the heels of this movie's street-level protagonist, Rock, finally having his first ever truly interesting moment. When he takes this whole, like, oh, my father won't be sullied by involvement with robots thing to its logical conclusion by using a self-destruct button to obliterate Duke Red and his ziggurat moments before the robot workers actually got the chance. And Tima's famous, like, her final line and her untimely death, it didn't hit me as hard as you would think. I had some gripes about her character in general. The whole thing felt oddly abstract and kind of undercooked. Her infatuation with Kenichi felt surface level, like a parrot that sits on a pirate's shoulder. The tragedy of her turning on him was aided more by the ironic juxtaposition of the lyrics of the Ray Charles song and the images of Kenichi getting the shit beaten out of him, rather than any pre-existing notion of, like, friendship or love. On top of that, the larger philosophical aspect of her character about whether robots can develop these special characteristics that we typically use to define what humanity is. They kind of relied on her more as the symbol to communicate these bigger themes of identity and emotion, xenophobia, within the context of the larger story, rather than giving her story beats that were powerful in the context of her as a character by itself. Like, we don't get any actual ambiguity about whether she's a human, like Blade Runner. We don't get a slow boil about her learning to hate people, like Ex Machina. We don't get a, like, slow director reveal of how fucking scary she's gonna be when she's activated per, I don't know, the Iron Giant. From what I can tell, her character, like, maybe it works as a symbol about Japanese nationalism and Emperor Hirohito, but, like, you gotta spin your wheels and get academic about, like, a larger framework before, like, shit starts to fall into place. I think I felt more watching Fifi get shot than I did at any point in Tima's arc. I was fucked up when we went after Fifi. That stated, the animation is jaw-dropping. There are some really striking things in here that do work well. Like the completely different way they animate the deaths of humans and robots. And it's also encouraging to see an animation from a treacherous, regressive period like the aughts tackle stuff like plutocracy, a conservative revolutionary movement disguised in the trappings of Marxism, and the divisive tactics of a violent deep state. There is some really neat stuff in here, but at the end of the day, I think Spirited Away took so much attention from this because it's a more well-rounded picture that's easy to understand without needing background in like a famous manga guy and Fritz Lang. This certainly does not deserve to be buried, not at all. But I was unable on this watch through to channel the 4 out of 4 star energy that Roger Ebert advertised. I give this like a 7.5 out of 10. Not a masterpiece from what I can tell, but it is one of a kind. Yeah, that's my thoughts. Back to you, Tim. Please don't kill me.
Understandable. Have a great day. No, good stuff all around. Yeah, I quite like this movie. Much like Ethan, I did get to see this a couple years ago in a theater. I got to see most of it. I had to come in a little bit late because I was getting off a film set. But yeah, seeing this on the big screen was definitely a great experience that I would recommend to anybody who has that opportunity. I do have the Blu-ray copy, and I don't really have any issue with like the look of it, but I understand the criticism. I do hate that it's like such a bare bones disc. Like Middle Creek basically was just like you get the movie and you get languages, that's it. And I would like for there to be more. I would like a
Inexplicably, copy. The DVD included in that package has all the bonus features. No, it's not. They're not on the Blu-ray. I don't know why.
Yeah. You were saying, Sony needs to do something about this, and Sony doing what they're already doing with anime. They're not gonna fucking do any favors for anybody. Yeah, fucking Sony crunchy-mation stuff. God, hate it here. But yeah, I think it's a really good movie. The animation is just impeccably gorgeous, unmistakably Tezuka. Like you can tell it's Tezuka as soon as you look at one character's face. It's he had a very distinct style. He was like Leiji Matsumoto in that way. You see a Leiji Matsumoto character, you're like, oh yeah, that's Leiji. And yeah, Tezuka absolutely has that. I mean, he basically created this style. So yeah, he's so instantly recognizable. The aesthetics are really interesting. Like they are very Astro Boy, but with like sort of a more modern kind of like cyberpunk feel to them in some places. Like the cinematography in some shots of this movie, oddly enough, felt very like Final Fantasy VII, the PS1 game. Like there are certain wides that felt very much like Final Fantasy VII cinematography. And I say that 100% complimentary. Like there's very much that sort of like 90s grungy cyberpunk feel to it, and it kind of it kind of clashes with sort of the like beautiful, almost like utopian kind of aesthetic that the upper class has. And I think like it's definitely taking cues from Fritz Lang's film. Like, I haven't read the manga, but I was reading how like they tried to lean into the Fritz Lang movie more in this movie than in the manga. You know, the lower class rising up against the plutocracy. They definitely do that here. Like, I think it does kind of an interesting job of showing, like, utopia is it's an ideal for the rich, and it's built on the carcasses of the lower class, and seeing it all kind of crumble down at the end, I think, is satisfying. Like you were saying, with the Ray Charles drop in this movie is just fucking phenomenal. That is the moment of the movie, and like one of the craziest needle drops I've heard in a movie. It's just so good. Yeah. Overall, I just think it's a really solid movie, and I think it should get more attention. I hope it becomes more readily available, because, like you said, it's not streaming. I don't think you can rent it right now, but you can get a Blu-ray, you can get a DVD, but tragically, it's not quite as readily viewable, but I would definitely say check it out if you haven't had the chance to see it. But we're going to take a quick ad break, and we'll be right back with general discussion.
You can have flaws, problems, but wow them in the end, and you've got a hit.
I can't stop loving you.
Welcome back from that ad break. Time for another ad. MoviePalette.com. It's a website that has little art pieces that contain thin lines representing the dominant color of each frame of a movie. Got one there for the film Mandy. Tanner has one for Punch Drunk Love, but he's not here. You could get one of your own. You might be able to get one for this film. I imagine that would be a very pretty looking palette. It's got a lot of cool, distinct colors. You could get another Rintaro film, like Galaxy Express 39, or X 1999, or The Dagger of Kama. Yeah, you can get any movie you want, even if they don't have it on the website. You can get one custom made. So go to MoviePalette.com, add one to your cart before you check out. Enter the code SQUAD15, save 15% on your order. Now, general discussion. I'll start. You already kind of alluded to this, but I do want to bring up one of the biggest differences from the manga is that apparently the lead character was a robot named Michi who was gender fluid and flew, which I think is fascinating. I kind of wish that was in this movie. That would be interesting.
Well, here's the trick about Michi is that they actually like flexibly use different pronouns for them, which is fun. But there's a switch in Michi's throat that you hit, and it changes their gender. So from boy to girl. So there are two beautiful shots of characters just jamming their entire forearm into Michi's mouth. To trans their gender.
It's just Ranma except
yeah. Instead, you have to pour the cold or warm water directly down Ranma's throat.
Why? Jesus Christ. I feel like I just read Tumblr fan fiction. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah. I really wish we could have gotten with these designs. The bit of Kenichi jamming is yes. up past the wrist, the Tima's throat.
They might not have been able to get away with the PG-13 on that one.
it's a hand.
They also... Was Metropolis the first manga to include Mickey Mouse?
There'd been like unlicensed Mickey Meese before, but I might have been the first one with the Les Clark redesign done for Sorcerer's Apprentice. I don't know. It is a bit difficult sometimes with Tezuka's work because a lot of it tended to be revised. Thankfully, actually, in some of the behind the scenes on this, they actually include bits from the original Akabon release, which was like printed in blue and red, as part of like, because this was actually released as basically like a graphic novel instead of serialized like a lot of contemporary manga. So theoretically, it should have been easier to adapt as a singular story. Unfortunately, the original manga is kind of a train wreck. In a way that's interesting. Like I quite like it, but it's it was limited to 160 pages, and he kept drawing too much, and he only had 6 months to do it, while also managing his extant workload. So even by some of Tezuka's early like SF manga, it's a bit messy. That is a thing that's interesting about this film, is that I think it is the lack of humor is interesting, because that's always been like the gags in Tezuka stuff are always so essential to them, like the sort of strange irreverence and the way that contrasts with the high melodrama of like Michi's tragic death, because the whole reason Michi's created is because of like radioactive sunspots that Duke Red is deploying. There's supposed to be a giant ant fight. He really just liked cramming ideas in these things, and I guess Rintaro does that a lot. Like much like, I think that is why at the very least Rintaro is theoretically really appropriate to adapt an Osamu Tezuka thing, is because his films are similarly like dense motion pictures.
X 1999 looks real cool.
That's right.
Don't know what the hell happened, but looks real.
It's a great Mother's Day viewing experience. But I guess while we're on the subject of Tezuka, it's interesting, some of the changes, because even at the time he wrote it, he had several characters as part of his star system, which we kind of gloss all the way back in our coverage of Interstellar, I think, because we talk about Matsumoto's sort of star system there. But a star system basically is the idea that you recycle character designs and treat them sort of like actors within a production. So like the mustachioed man, Shunsakuban, or Higyo Yaji, or Percival Pompous, or Daddy Walrus, or he's got a bunch of international names that I really like. Daddy Walrus is obviously the best. But he's a character that recurs probably most frequently. Kenichi is best known for being the star of his sort of breakout hit, as well as the other science fiction manga that Metropolis is a trilogy of, part of a trilogy of, Lost World and Next World, or like retrospectively made into a trilogy. It wasn't really intended as such. And Michi appeared in some other works prior, notably Mysterious Underground Men. So those characters are persistent. Well, Michi's not in this. Sorry, you got replaced by the white girl with blonde hair and blue eyes.
Hate to see it.
Hate to see it.
That's right. I guess it's appropriate if you're adapting a German work to some extent.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the original, the Metropolis novel was written by Lang's wife, who,
Big Nazi. I never knew Metropolis was so beloved by Nazis. That would suck so bad that one of your greatest films, Dr. Mabuse the Gambler, would be so loved by Hitler. No, I guess they skipped over that part in film studies, or didn't emphasize it hard enough that Hitler and the gang were like, this is my shit. I love Metropolis.
I definitely remember in my history of film class, Pete was just like, oh yeah, Metropolis is Hitler's favorite movie. But I mean, I get it. It's a really fucking good movie. And at that time, especially, it's just like, holy shit, we can make movies like this.
Yeah. And it's one of those things, too, where fascism distorts objects for its project, that sort of thing. Don't get me wrong, there are aspects of Metropolis that lend itself towards that reading. But I'm talking about Osamu Tezuka. Go ahead.
Weren't there some subversions of the star system? I'm not as familiar with Tezuka's work. I heard the character who plays Rock He was, I think, an Astro Boy, or there was some kind of subversion going on where he was a robot that hated humans in one of the more popular Tezuka works, and so now this is like flipped on its head. I know Michi shows up as Astro Boy's mom in something. I did read about that. But there was some of this where, if you know the star system, there's a payoff because some of these are direct subversions. It also, it makes Tima stand out because she's just the idealized anime girl. She's like the one who's not from the star system, and she's just this perverse, just like, concentrated anime thing. But yeah, it would be nice to do some research and kind of know the ways that they flipped it on its head, be more familiar with these actors.
Yeah, it's interesting because some of them are persistent. Skunk wasn't in the original. He's a recurring Astro Boy villain. But Acetylene Lamp, who gets you see his candle for just a brief moment. They do that like crossfade because he's got a little indent on the back of his head. And Hameg, both goons of Duke Red, show up, and they're recurring figures. But they do pop up in the manga. Acetylene Lamp and Hameg, which wonderful names, really, really delightful. But the two major additions that jump to mind, well, Atlas shows up, and he's a robot boy, the leader of the revolutionaries, that crops up in several works. I think that's the one, because Rock, in his original incarnation, was Boy Detective Rock Holmes, and in every other incarnation is a bastard. I think in Alabaster he's a racist, homophobe. I think that's the one where he cross dresses in and sexually assaults a woman.
Mamma mia.
He's obsessed with the Greeks and the Greek gods, and that Alabaster is a really fraught work. Tezuka also had a lot of really interesting gender things going on too in his works, in case that wasn't obvious.
I read Dororo.
The first thing I read Moo when I was in the 5th grade, and that's about a homosexual cross-dressing serial murderer, which a really interesting, if very fraught work, which was very funny. Finally reading something by the guy who you'd only read about in other works and seen some like the Astro Boy cartoon on TV, and he's like the Walt Disney of Japan. But the other, so there's Rock, Atlas is the other one that really stands out to me, and Pero. Pero being originally a character that cropped up in the Hot Dog Corps series of stories for Astro Boy. Pero was Shinsakuban's dog, who was kidnapped and was dissected and had his brain removed and installed in a robot body. Don't worry, things work out for Pero because they're able to defeat the Hot Dog Corps, and he's returned and then given a robot dog body at the end of that story. So things work better for the original incarnation of Pero. I also kind of, if I'm being completely frank, prefer the original design for Pero, which uses kind of like insect, like all black eyes, instead of the kind of slightly uncanny humanoid, white eyes with the red iris that's deployed in this film. I like Pero, even if he feels like kind of strange in this film, a bit odd and out of place. Fifi is also in the original, but all of the Fifi type robots look like strange Lego minifigures with weird like splotchy ball heads that have like blades sticking out of them. Very, very strange designs in the original work. The original work has a lot of other stuff going on. Like the Mickey mice in that are giant mutant rats that are created by the radioactive sunspots that also help the scientists create Michi at the outset. Things won't stop happening in that one. Tezuka is great at making works where things will not stop happening, generally speaking.
It's a little bit funny on the DVD bonus features that Otomo and Rintaro multiple times say this movie would never have gotten made before Osamu Tezuka died.
Yeah.
He would have just slammed that shit down. One of the reasons I heard was just kind of Metropolis, the manga, he felt like it was like unfinished. Like it came out before he was, I guess, at the point in his career where he's like, all right, I'm killing it. These are my stories. That was one of the explanations I heard for, because, what is it? Rintaro was at Mushi Productions, and he was like, I'm either going to do a Metropolis movie, or there was one other work. I think it had the word Zero in it.
Zero Man.
But thank you. Thank you for the second correction. Every time Tezuka just fucking shot that shit down and literally needed to go into the ground before this could actually finally become a production.
Well, my understanding too, it's interesting because I recently visited Mateo Watsky has a really robust sort of history of motion productions series of articles. Zero Man was one that they kept trying to make, and Tezuka was on board, but they just couldn't. Like there's storyboards. I think there's a brief pilot from '68. So I wonder because he refers to that as I think like a feature animation. Or like full length, not feature, which is kind of ambiguous the way he gives it. There's an anecdote about Rintaro, I think from the front of Jonathan Clements' anime history, where he's talking about the premiere of Astro Boy, and Clements is using this as an example for historiography of why like even primary sources can be questionable, because he keeps insisting a little bit that Astro Boy didn't premiere on New Year's Day 1963, and the interviewer has to say, no, it came out in 1963 on January 1st before the interview can continue. So sometimes as a narrator, he's maybe not terribly reliable. It's unfortunate being used as an example of error in the historiographical record for primary sources. I think maybe that colors my perception of him. But I wonder if Metropolis would have been a television program. That would have been interesting, and I think maybe have worked to some extent. Or one of the features. I don't think it was ever considered for like an anime-rama thing or anything like that. It's interesting, yeah, that they talk about how this would have never been made. I could see this maybe being the subject of one of those television specials that Tezuka Pro made, that sort of thing. But also, Tezuka was extremely controlling of his work. He was, when you read about his time at Mushi Pro, and it's shockingly that despite like a lot of comics artists in American animation, like the turn of the century, early 30s, 20s, that sort of thing, that were kind of putting their name, like rubber stamp, and not being involved. Tezuka was, despite having a million other deadlines to work with, and that was part of the problem with that company, is that he wanted to be involved in everything to some extent, which is admirable, but can cause some friction like that, especially when reading about him talk about Metropolis to some extent. There's a sense that he was kind of like surprised that it was especially successful. And he's like, apparently it's been reprinted several times, and it seems like something where either he's like feigning modesty, or he was genuinely kind of checked out for this particular title in a way that he seems less so for something like New Treasure Island or some of his other contemporary science fiction work, which is interesting. I liked it. I liked my time with it, but it is, yeah, a little bit of a gigantic mess.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and the movie's messy too, but I think came together ultimately into something interesting. Sometimes messy is fun.
Exactly. No, I think that's absolutely it. I think the film picks and chooses some of the best bits to take, which is interesting. I wanted to talk briefly, too, about, since shifting away from Tezuka just a bit, unless you guys had anything that was particularly burning that you wanted to address there. The music, and particularly the use of jazz music, I think that's a really common thing in Rintaro films. Take the X Train, Novi. I actually revisited that one. That one's terrific. That's one where you just download it illegally, sorry, or watch it it's probably on YouTube or whatever. It's never going to get a re-release because, as I recall, it was produced by Konami, and they didn't secure the rights to the music to take the A Train. Along with a lot of the materials involved in that. I think that it's based on a short story that they didn't secure the rights to as well, which is a real shame because that one's great and makes excellent use of a jazz score. Download, which is based on a PC Engine game, kind of inexplicably, that came out well after those games were at all relevant, is great. It's the one piece of media I can think of that has as a part of the soundtrack a bluegrass, like vocals, reading the text of a cursed chain email that will mind control you and make you kill yourself. It's really terrific. It's also got a lot of really good animation by Yoshinori Kaneda, who you guys will remember from doing some of the best cuts of Galaxy Express 3.9 all the way back there. But yeah, Rintaro's always been particularly interested in including jazz in his works where he can. So it was nice getting to see that so effectively deployed in here. Yeah, I wanted to save the Ray Charles thing for you guys to talk about because I know that everybody would be breaking that one up because it's so good.
Yeah, that needle drop is incredible. But I mean, just the jazz music throughout the movie in general, I think, is really solid. I mean, speaking as a Cowboy Bebop fan, I do like when my sci-fi anime has some jazz in it. This goes for like a different kind of vibe with like Bebop kind of had more of a fast-paced kind of jazz, and this is more atmospheric, I guess.
Slower and less intense.
Yeah, exactly. But like the one shot that's coming to mind is like when you first see Tima and like her hair is kind of flowing and you have that jazz playing underneath that. That I think is a really strong kind of audio visual sequence with just some like really simple kind of easy listening jazz underneath just like a one shot. It's just a very strong choice, and yeah, just overall, I really like the music throughout the movie, and there's some like orchestral stuff too, and I think those kind of mesh together pretty well. They pick their flavor where they need it.
Yeah, it reminds me a bit of 1001 Nights, which has a traditional score by I think it's Isao Tomita, and like the like I don't know, fuzz band. That's all I can think of to describe them. The Helpful Soul, which is a lot of like fuzz guitar and wailing. And then the beautiful lush orchestral by Isao Tomita. It's a bit less stark here, but I do like that contrast. I think it's effective. Speaking of Cowboy Bebop, I think I don't think he was actually involved like once it went along, but Watanabe was actually part of the initiation for this production. Not anything meaningful beyond that, but I think that's interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
I do love because there's very much a Mega Man vibe here too, which I just learned that Mega Man apparently was supposed to be like an Astro Boy thing, but and then you have the character named Rock, which kind of brings it full circle with the Mega Man thing. I just thought that was neat. Like I mentioned how it has that sort of cyberpunk aesthetic, and I think that's something that's maybe a little more prevalent in those games than like early Astro Boy.
Yeah, I think too. What's interesting about Rock's design is I think the design of Blues or Proto Man is partially inspired by Rock specifically, because there's a definite resemblance, especially when he's wearing that red sweatshirt here.
Yeah, every time I saw him, I was just like, "That's Proto Man."
No, absolutely. Yeah, the like aesthetic links there are especially. Oh, that was the thing about Rock that I always find interesting. There's a weird, like, I don't know, maybe I'm just reading into it, but like semi-incestuous kind of infatuation with his father that I've always found compelling. Like his weird particular sort of obsession with him here. Kind of lands. Just I think it's the way he's like so focused on it, in like willing to hurt people in a way that feels like really contiguous, I guess, with his characterization and in some of those more psychosexual depictions, and that might be why I'm picking up on that. That might be a case of extant readings informing this reading, perhaps. But I was thinking about that. Discussing the not Stars System actors in this, though, I thought it was kind of interesting. In the behind-the-scenes feature, they kind of spotlight the 3 like first-time newbie actors. and largely not terribly interesting careers, unfortunately. But it is interesting that Kenichi's voice actor, I think this is the only bit of vocal performance he's done as like an actor, but he's an actual jazz musician. And his has performed with Herbie Hancock when he was 16. That's crazy. So reasonably accomplished. I feel terrible for Yuka Imoto, who I feel like they really make do a lot of heavy lifting. She's the voice of Tima in that behind-the-scenes feature, and it's clear that she just kind of doesn't know what to do with this movie to some extent. Go ahead.
The direction they gave her was just like, don't act. Which is such a good way to psych out like an incoming voice actor person. You could see her on the bonus features being like, okay, so I'll use my real voice. And then I started thinking, what is my real voice? And it just like felt really bad for her. I think that if you check out her Wikipedia page, she was active until around 2004. Maybe I missed some big jumps there, but it seems like she didn't stick with it. Also, even at the film's premiere, she seems very like, what do you call it? Like she's kind of negging herself. She's just like, yeah, this movie rocks, and I barely was a part of it. I didn't do shit. They did amazing on this. Poor tragic character. Really wonder what she's up to now.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because completely on the other end of that, the dub for this was produced by Anime's Kevin Seymour, who we'll remember is sort of like the primary subject of our Cagliostro dub discussion back on that matinee, who does and did great work. And I've always been quite fond of Anime's dubs. They feature a lot of Harmony Gold alumni. So of course, Tima is voiced by Rebecca Forstadt, who many will remember as the original English language voice of Lin Min-mei from the hit science fiction space opera Robotech.
Lin Min-mei.
Ming-mei. But there's a lot of other really good talent in that dub. I didn't get around to revisiting it for this particular incarnation. I remember it being understandable for the material, a bit subdued to some extent, but there are some still pretty good performances. A lot of actors that I really liked. Revisiting it, it's one of those things where I will probably revisit the dub for this one.
Yeah, it's a solid dub. Like that's what I watched for this revisit, and it's maybe not the best dub in the world. That like maybe not especially remarkable, but it's solid. It's entertaining. I was talking about earlier before the call how the last two movies I watched both had Steve Blum. It was this movie and The Mandalorian and Grogu. Both had Steve Blum. I like this one a lot more than The Mandalorian and Grogu.
God. That's right. I don't know anything about those people.
Carabas.
Wolf and Cobb.
I did want to, I briefly brought this up. I did want to go back to, they completely animate robot and human deaths in here differently. Like, it bears pointing out, just to like pivot to the animation if we can, every time a robot dies in Metropolis, it's animated like that scene of the female cyborg being beaten to death in the Animatrix.
Yeah.
They turn the level of detail up to like 11. There's bits of shit flying everywhere, random components poking out like vital organs. And you'd think like, because you see a robot death first, you'd think that like, okay, this is just the movie. The character models are more simple, but then they get enormously complicated if they're ripped apart with bullets. This is going to be fine. But then the few cases where we see people be shot in this movie are so incredibly tame that you have to assume there was some kind of deliberate choice going on there. Like when people are shot, there's no blood. Sometimes there aren't even bullet holes. They fall down and they like keep their hand over wherever it was they got shot. It very well could have been like to keep your sympathy and attention with the robot underclass, but also this might have been like a Predator Badlands scenario.
Yeah.
Where you really wanted this to be a PG-12 and know you can do whatever you want if it's robots.
Yeah,
One of those.
I think it's probably the latter, because you see that a lot. Like, the example that I always think of is episode 3 of Samurai Jack, where he's just slicing up robots and they're just bleeding oil all over him. And TVY7, appropriate for all children. put it on Cartoon Network in the day. Yeah, I think that's probably more or less what that is. Maybe also making you slightly sympathetic towards the robots just being slaughtered.
That's right. I guess while we're talking about animation too, it's worth noting that the animation director for this is Yasuhiro Nakura, who worked on a bunch of stuff. He worked with Rintaro on a bunch of things since way back in the day, doing like in-betweens on the Galaxy Express 39 film, but worked on his Bride of Deimos OVA, which comes highly recommended. But significantly, he was also the animation director on Angel's Egg, which we've covered here on Bomb Squad Movie Night Matinee podcast. Just get all the names in there.
Yeah, Vidcast. The Bomb Squad calls.
Yeah,
This was also the last work of our boy Kazuo Komatsubara, the fucking legend who did a lot of character design for Go Nagai. Leiji Matsumoto did Nausicaa in the Valley of the Wind. You know you're hot shit when you start your career designing Devilman and Captain Harlock. Apparently, guy with a ton of visibility for the like late 70s, early 80s like anime magazine boom, did a lot of covers. But get this absolute maniac. He worked on Metropolis while he was suffering from the very malignant cancerous tumor that would end up killing him. Like, he worked standing up because he was in too much pain. That true dedication there. He's in that, like, part of heaven with, like, Chadwick Boseman and John Cazale and Raul Julia, like, the clubhouse they reserve for movie people who showed up to set when they had terminal cancer. Real badass there.
Yeah.
I also heard Tezuka died in the same way. He was in the hospital, and like the nurse was like trying to take away his drawing instruments, and his last words were something like, "Please let me get back to work," or something of that nature. Something about those guys.
Sad, very sad.
I do always think of Shigeru Mizuki writing a manga where he's describing a dinner or just an outing with Osamu Tezuka and I believe it's Shotaro Ishinomori, and they're talking about all the work they're doing, and he's like, you guys have to take a break and eat or you're going to die young. And he outlived them by several decades despite being much older than them and also losing an arm in the war. So, don't smoke too much and get 8 hours of sleep, kids.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm just thinking of, like, we relatively recently, like, within the last 5 years, lost Kentaro Miura, because, same shit. And, like, he was, doing, like, a regular schedule, like, maybe once a month, but still working himself to death. It's just such a commonly occurring thing in the manga industry, unfortunately. It's very, very sad.
The trick is to be like Takao Saito and get a bunch of dudes to draw for you. Like, you do the rough outlines of it, but really rely on your assistants. It's fine. That's legal. You did the work to get here. Now you can coast just a little bit. You're still doing a lot of work. Let's be clear here. It's worth noting too in the behind the scenes features. I think there's a woman who I keep thinking is maybe Rumiko Takahashi at the front of that, where they're going to the premiere of Metropolis, but very clearly you can see Osamu Tezuka, who we've obviously discussed on the show before, Space Adventure Cobra, one of the most significant boys in animation, and also a former colleague of Rintaro's back at Mushi Pro. And Yoshiyuki Tomino, subject of my first answer on this episode, looking extremely obvious. They really zoom in on him in a way that's funny to me. As if he, you couldn't pick him out of a crowd. The bald guy that's always wearing a ball cap and has a very prominent mole. But it was I don't know why it was a little bit like the Leo point for me experiencing those. Cropping up in this. I guess actually kind of reeling it back to a production connection this isn't the first time that Otomo and Rintaro had worked together before. Previously, they'd worked together on Labyrinth or Mane Mane or Neo Tokyo was released by Streamline, which they each directed segments of that. Mane Mane being the segment that Rintaro directed, which is really good, actually. I mean, that whole film's great. And I believe the segment by Otomo was Construction Stop Order.
Yeah, I think he did the third one.
Yes, yeah, I really like that robot. There's I think Robert Axelrod plays the main character in the dub of that, which I remember quite fondly. Then they also worked together on Genma Tyson, aka Harmageddon, where Otomo did character design work and key animation more prominently, to some extent. Which was one of his first times working in anime in general. Genma Tyson, slash Harmageddon, because I just really like saying the word Harmageddon, is interesting for two reasons. There's a Laserdisc game made of footage from it to make a really bad shooter called Bega's Battle, Bega being the robot in Harmageddon. And it's also probably the most Rintaro pacing movie ever made. Even more than Dagger of Kamui. I love it. Don't get me wrong. The early 80s Esper boom of movies created a lot of things that were too long, but I probably like more than they deserve despite the fact that they're too long. That and Lock the Superman jump to mind. Oh, the one other thing in that behind-the-scenes interview is one of the effects artists mentioned that Rintaro took a magic marker and started marking up his CRT monitor, and he had to wipe it off with benzene afterwards when he was like, do this, with his magic marker, which is extremely funny. That's extremely a guy who's been working with analog stuff for 40 years, having to work with computer people now.
Yeah.
It's a good bit.
I like to imagine he knew exactly what he was doing, and he was not trying to be helpful. It seems like something Rintaro would do as a joke. We trained it wrong as a joke.
They told him how expensive each individual, like, high-resolution CRT monitor was, and he just looked at him and was like, I have 1 billion yen to spend.
Yes.
How much does benzene cost?
I did want to bring that up though, because like this at the time was the highest budget anime film of all time at 1.5 billion yen, and then it would be surpassed by Steam Boy 3 years later. So like it surpassed Akira, only to get surpassed again by another Otomo film.
James Cameron type shit going on. Otomo's films. I mean, this is a really stupid non sequitur, but I was wondering if there were any other movies that got made specifically because somebody died. And the only one I could find that was like in a similar vein was Trail of the Pink Panther. Have either of you ever heard of Trail of the Pink Panther?
That name sounds familiar.
So at a certain point, Peter Sellers refused to do another Pink Panther film. He's like, I've had it. This shit's dumb. So after he died, they built a movie around unused footage and outtakes of him. They were like, all right, he's out of here. Let's gather all the film we can. We got another Pink Panther movie out of this asshole. And then flipped him off as his coffin went down. Apparently, that was the main other one where somebody's ghost was just fucking pounding the wall furious as the movie screened for the first time.
Yeah.
Also, rest in peace to the guy whose shoulder was completely dislocated forever after one of the animators punched him so hard after the pencil test where Tima's hair was going like it does.
Yeah.
That poor fucking guy still can't feel his arm 25 years later. That hair animation is so fucking nice.
It's so good. I also love the shot where she's just kind of standing on the building and she has that glow, and then the bird just perches on her shoulder, and it's like she's angelic. That's just good sauce. That's just some good sauce right there.
I want to see if I could be wrong 3 times in general discussion. I heard they might have used airbrushing for some of the hair shots. Okay, they did.
Yeah. Yes, yeah, no, that's one of those ones where I just remember the way it looks. You can tell because of the way it is.
Yeah.
no, absolutely. They used to well, I mean, to be clear, it would be difficult because sometimes this one for the most part, it is worth mentioning that it's cell animated. Not like photo cells on your CRT monitor, but cell animated with animation cells, which are composited in the computer box for the most part. But yeah, it looks like they're doing practical airbrush. They might be doing. I don't think they're doing digital ink and paint. But some of those are like art department handled materials, so maybe. But I'm going to go out on a limb and say that you're correct, Austin, after giving a way too long answer.
There's also that the zoom out of the city is highlighted in the bonus features. This is something that gets mentioned slightly more. They did like this. There's a zoom out of the city with like a lot of like layers and stuff going on. And I think they did painted cells over the polygons. Like they got like a more or less monochrome render of it, and then did some kind of maneuver like painting over it, maybe just to give it colors. But it's weird seeing the animators be so casual about just like that fucking sucked. Like I don't know if that's a common thing in Japanese bonus features, but I feel like they usually put on that thing where they're like, we're very proud of the work we've done. It was very technically complicated. If you watch the bonus features for this, it's just 3 dudes who are like, fuck that. That sucked. And it kind of rules.
Yeah, I do remember that because I specifically remembered. I feel like there's some sentiment of I'm glad I didn't have to do that, because it feels like it's ink and paint work to some extent, which makes sense because that probably would have been cheaper than rendering it at that point. Was outsourcing it to women or foreigners. But I do think that's interesting, and that is one of the things. Sometimes this film, in interesting ways, kind of apes the aesthetics of much older things, because doing that particular variety of like hand painting, monochromatic images feels like very early, like back when ink and paint had to be done with like stencils on like individual film reels as opposed to like mass production kind of stuff. But obviously that's like I guess the most obvious and like least flaunted of those compared to something like the wipes or the closed irises and open irises that you see. I like that they redo those in the behind the scenes features. It's a stupid thing that I kind of like.
All right. With all that said, let's get into our final thoughts. Austin, we'll start with you.
This film was once talked about as a landmark in Japanese animation, put in the same breath as like Akira and Princess Mononoke. 2001, great year for posthumous tributes to famous directors featuring an android child that learns life is full of suffering and pain. It's so crazy. We got 2. And while Metropolis certainly wins against Spielberg's AI, it's never, I don't think, ever going to reach the level of mainstream success like the Ghibli movie that overshadowed it. Because while it is a visual tour de force, like most movies made at Madhouse, Otomo's screenplay felt like it needed a bit more polish. But who's going to tell the guy who fucking directed Akira that he needs to work on his screenplay? It was like 40% head, 40% hands, less than 10% heart.
Fair enough. Ethan, final thoughts.
I think in one of the interviews included, Rintaro, as his sort of modus operandi for this film, is that he wanted to create the perfect version of the filmic science fiction comics, like graphic novel length material that Tezuka made as an animated film. And I think, to some extent, like if you're going for that specifically, in terms of simultaneously capturing a level of detail, polish, technical innovation, and also capturing some of the messiness, some of the roughshod qualities, some of the open gaps and spaces for interpretation in things that don't quite track or feel like they're a product of the production of this thing. I do think that Metropolis really successfully achieves that effect, and in viewing it through that lens, I think it's really interesting, almost as intentionally or otherwise, kind of this gesture towards an older format of manga that is far less common in the age of serialization of the weekly and monthly manga magazine, as opposed to the Akahan graphic novel format or like manga libraries and that sort of thing. I think it's a unique object. It's really captivating. I think it can be appreciated on those merits. I think you get more if you're familiar with the manga or Fritz Lang's original film, but I don't know if you need to see those. I think that that gives you a bit more to grasp onto, maybe when you're having, if you're having trouble with some of the material in the middle. But I think on the whole it is visually magnetic enough to keep you through, and at the very least, I think that that ending, that really remarkable ending, will stick with you. More than anything. It'll compensate for some of the deficiencies that might be perceived in this work, which I still think is a compelling, loving tribute, and a really good companion to the excellent 2003 Astro Boy series as well. I feel like they two peas in a pod in terms of, sort of virtuoso talents and love letters to Tezuka's work. So watch this movie, watch that television anime, and play Astro Boy Omega Factor for the Game Boy Advance, and you'll receive an education of sorts, or at the very least edification, or I don't know, do the thing I told you to do.
So true. Do what Ethan told you to do, and you will achieve our gratitude, I guess.
That's right.
But yeah, no, great thoughts all around. Metropolis 2001 by Rintaro is an excellent film. I have not read the manga, but I do think the film holds up even without having that experience. I can't remember if I saw this before the Fritz Lang movie. I definitely think that helps, but I think it's a movie that works either way. I think there's enough, as messy as it is, there's enough of a narrative there to keep things interesting, to make it an entertaining and just interesting viewing experience. The animation, like we've been saying, is just gorgeous. Like I've said many times before, that period in like the late 80s, 90s, early 2000s, where they were just like getting as good as they could at, perfecting cell animation, and then starting to bring in CG a little bit to supplement the cells. I think that is done really excellently here. Beautiful movie. The fucking ending is incredible. That's actually the first thing I ever saw of this movie, was the Ray Charles scene. So I was like, yeah, I absolutely have to fucking watch this movie now. And I do think the rest of the movie is like, you can watch that scene and then go into the rest of the movie and still overall think it's a great experience. If you have an opportunity to see this on a big screen, I would absolutely recommend it. But I would also just recommend checking it out whatever way is available to you, because it's a good film that doesn't get talked about enough, and should be seen by all fans of animated sci-fi. So with all that said, this has been the Bomb Squad's matinee episode on Metropolis 2001. Thank you all for tuning in. If you're listening on any of the audio platforms, please give us a review or a thumbs up. Tell us how we're doing. We appreciate any feedback you can give us. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you for watching. Leave a comment below. Let us know. What did you think of Rintaro's Metropolis? What do you think of Fritz Lang's Metropolis? What's your favorite cartoon about Robot? What do you think of Osamu Tezuka's work? What's your favorite Osamu Tezuka work? Comment below and let us know. While you're down there, hit the like button if you like the video. Hit the subscribe button if you want to see more. And hit the bell icon to get updates when we upload stuff. And if you want to support us further, go ahead and check out our Patreon. $5 tier gets you access to commentary tracks, and the $10 tier gets you a shout out at the end of episodes. So many thanks to Tanya Craft. We appreciate your continued patronage of the channel. And if you want to support us monetarily in a different way, go to bombsquadproductions.shop and buy some merch. We got shirts, posters, hats, stickers, magnets. You give us a little bit of money and you get a thing. And people will be like, what the fuck is Bomb Squad Productions? And you can show them our channel. Yeah. That has been this episode. Be sure to tune in next week when we will be talking about The Sheep Detective. That should be a fun time. I have not seen that movie, and I'm probably not going to have a chance to get on that recording, but I'm sure it'll be a fun one. So be sure to tune in for that. And thank you once again for tuning into this episode. And remember, I can't stop loving you. Farewell.
They slid my ticket across the table and I said, sorry guys, I gotta see about a girl.